G'day, my name is Sean and this is my channel, The Guy Who Sews, and in today's video is going to be a miniature quilt show showcasing all the quilt tops that I made in the 2022 year. Each one has a story and I thought it would be fun to go back and see why I decided to make this quilt and why it's special to me. The first one I want to show is the Rhapsody quilt. This is one that I completed earlier last year, and I bought this kit from Craftsy back in 2017. My brother had passed away early that year, and my sister and I both love to quilt, and I thought it'd be a really neat idea for us to get a quilt kit together. And this one was on clearance. I believe it was about $40 US to buy, and they were actually able to ship it to Australia for about 18 bucks. So for under $100, I was able to get two quilt kits for myself and my sister, and we both made these quilts. I was in the lead for quite some time, which I was really proud of, and then I kind of put it away for a while, and my sneaky little sister went ahead and beat me. So this is the completed quilt top. I have not quilted it yet, and along with all the others, I am going to put a picture of the completed quilt top in the corner, so that way you can kind of see it as well. But this one is very special to me. I don't think this one will ever leave the house, but I would like to quilt it very soon. The next one is my bear paw, and this is by far one of my favorite quilts of all time. And I also bought this quilt kit back in 2016, 2017. And when I first did it, I was not a confident enough piecer to put it together. The seams were not matching up or anything else like that, and it was frustrating the heck out of me. So I'd work on a block for a little while, I'd put it away for about a year, pull it back out, and then last year I decided this is the year that I'm going to finish this quilt. So each week on the podcast, I went ahead and put a block or two together, and we finally got the quilt top together. My plan for this one is to quilt it at some point this year, and hopefully even enter it into the state fair. I don't know that I'm going to win any prizes, but I figured it'd be fun at least to see it hanging up in the sky. So this is one of my favorites. I also did a tutorial on Stephanie Stitches Live on this one as well. So yeah, I love this bear paw quilt. This is one that I started in about February last year. I was very new to the YouTube world, but my friend Becca said, hey, come on to my live with me and some of the others and do my charm pack challenge, which is where we had one charm pack and then up 2 yards of a fabric, and we all made something, and everyone made something beautiful and different, and this was my creation. It was basically a stained glass, and I did buy a charm pack, but everything else is scraps or leftover fabric from other projects, and it's all dogs. And I just love this thing. I did a tutorial on how to make this, so if you're interested, you can actually do this yourself. And it's super simple. If you have jelly rolls or charm packs or both, you can actually make it, or you can just use your scraps like I did. My goal for this one is to finish quilting it at some point and then donate it to one of the local rescue groups here in this area, so that way they can use it for fundraising purposes. I wasn't intending on making this next one, but I actually won a prize from Stephanie Stitch's channel, and it was a quilt kit from the Fort Worth Quilt Studio, and it was there as luck would have it, and it was a St. Paddy's Day Irish themed quilt, and this one was really cute. I learned to make some new blocks, and I thought that was really neat, and it turned out really nice. It's a nice small lap quilt, and it was just a lot of fun to put together. I still need to quilt this one, common story, and I do not know quite yet what I'm going to do with the finished quilt. I purchased one of the subscription boxes from Cotton Cuts last year. It was the Batiks box, and it came with some really neat fabrics and one of the patterns, which was a pinwheel quilt. And this is how it looks, and I thought this one turned out really well, and I learned a lot of lessons from it, which the first one is you need to use contrasting fabrics. But it was really, really neat. And then once it was done, it wasn't quite big enough. We thought it'd be really neat to go on one of our twin beds. So I put this special border around the edge, which was just basically the scraps or leftovers from where I had cut. I just thought this was a really neat idea. I think they call it a crumb quilt border. But I just love this, and it's a really neat idea, and it's something I would definitely do again in the future. So if you ever have scraps and you need a bigger border, try it out and see what happens. Well, my lucky streak of winning contests continued. Pity doesn't work for the lottery. And I won a 3-month subscription to the Cotton Cuts Boutique boxes. So The first month came in and they had a pattern on there and it was called the So Simple, and this is what it looks like, and it was just basically half square triangles and 4 patches, and it was really quick to go together, and I thought it suited these batiks really nicely. So this is how it looks, and I just tried to mix it up the best I could, and I believe the final plan for this once I get quilted is just to leave it down in our living area so that way it's a nice quilt for our guests to use. This one was a lot of fun. My friend Stephanie from Stephanie Stitches suggested some charity that quilts could go to, and one of them was a camp up in Ohio for disabled children, and I thought that was just a great organization. And the thing is, when these kids go to these camps, they get to take home the quilt and pillowcase that they're assigned. And so I went ahead and thought it would really neat to make one for a boy, and I used a bunch of different dinosaur prints, and then this batik I found at my local quilt shop, which I thought kind of looked like the area in Jurassic Park where velociraptors jumped out. So this is what it looks like, and I need to quilt it. Yeah, I know, common story. At some point, and then eventually, once that's all done, I'll go ahead and send it up to the organization in Ohio, and some lucky boy will be able to enjoy that for many years to come. This was another quilt kit purchase, and it sat unopened for a number of years because I just did not feel confident enough, and I had so many other projects that I wanted to finish first. So it's a Soul Flay quilt, and this is where my friend Mum and Pop from Mum and Pop Quilt Shop came into assistance, because this center area is supposed to be foundation paper piece, and I wasn't confident enough to do that, but they actually put out a video and showed where you could do it traditional piecing, so thank you so much for that, and it made my life so much easier. But this is basically it. It's a beautiful big quilt. It's actually in a octagon right now, but it's actually going to be cut down to a square eventually, and I have no clue how to quilt it, but we'll figure that out at some point. And again, I don't know what we're going to do with this when it's finally done. This one is actually a completed quilt. It is my t-shirt quilt that I used out of a lot of the t-shirts that I got from donating platelets and blood at the American Red Cross. And this went into the state fair, and sadly no ribbons, but I truly believe now that it was not meant to win a ribbon, but to actually get completed, because I tend to make a lot of piece quilt tops and never quilt them, which is something I want to change in 2023. So I'm super glad that this one is done. It's definitely a favorite. I sit under it here all the time, and I really love it. I'm so glad that I had the motivation to go ahead and actually finish this quilt. Next one was a favorite of mine. I worked on it on and off for a few months, and I dubbed it the Scrappy Diamond, and it's basically just a bunch of 2.5-inch squares and some 5-inch white and off-white squares as well. Most of this was scrappy, and that made it really neat, and it was just a fun project just to work on here and there, because it didn't require a whole lot of brain power. You just kind of put this 16 patches together, and then the 5-inch squares with the little thing. Yeah, it was just really easy. So it's a beautiful pattern. I'll put a tutorial out for it very soon, but it's always good for me to have something mindless to put together when I want to sew but don't want anything that's too intensive. Next one is probably my favorite, and probably a favorite of everybody else's. It is the koala quilt, and this is one that is for my niece, and it was actually one that my sister picked out, because I told her once she was pregnant that I would make her a quilt. And I asked her, what sort of quilt would you like? And after a little while, she sent me a message and sent me the pattern by Elizabeth Hartman. And she said, could you make something like this or something like this? And I'm like, well, I've always wanted to try an Elizabeth Hartman pattern, so this was a great motivation. She does some beautiful patterns. It looks intimidating, but once you get started, it is not as hard as it looks. The cutting is probably the worst part. And if you can sew half square triangles or the flip and stitch, you are all set to go. It will get quilted and sent to Australia very soon, and it'll be a beautiful present for my baby niece. Last February, I signed up for the So Sweet Puzzle Mystery Quilt by Cotton Cuts, and it was a 10-month project where they sent me pre-cut fabric each month, and I put together the clues, and at the end they gave us the assembly instructions to show you how all the blocks went together. and I chose the Venet colorway, and it turned out so beautifully. And I just love the colors, how bright it is, and everything else. It's 45 by 60, so it's going to make a very nice lap quilt. I still need to find the perfect backing fabric for it and quilt it, but that's something I plan on keeping here in the house and using for myself. I told myself last year that I did not want to do Christmas presents because it was going to put too much pressure on me, but then I decided, you know what, let's put together a quilt for a friend of ours, and it didn't get done in time. But you know, that's okay. I called it the Blue and Grey, and it is a series of snowball blocks and patchwork, and I thought it turned out really, really nicely. And it's almost done, and just have to quilt it and baste it, so it'll get done into its recipient fairly soon, and I think it's going to be worth the wait. The next one is actually sitting behind me, hanging up, and it is what I call the Sweet Treats quilt. And it was a self-designed quilt that I made for the state fair. It was in the doll quilt section. As you can see, hopefully, there is a pretty white ribbon, which was third place in that category. I designed the quilt myself. I did it as applique because I am not very, very good with curves, and I thought it turned out really, really nicely. So just after finishing this quilt behind me, I signed up for a quilt block swap with Quilts on Tour, where myself and 11 other people put into a group and we sent each other a block. And this was the design that they come up with, and they also called it Sweet Treats. So it was a little confusing for me for a while to keep those two straight. But this is the completed quilt top that I put together on New Year's Eve, and this chocolate one in the middle is actually my block, and then the rest are from the 11 other ladies that sent it in, and I just think it turned out really nice. It's a beautiful small quilt, and I think it's going to end up going to my sister as well to join the koala quilt. Final quilt in this show for 2022 was the Somber quilt. My goal was to get all the quilt kits that I purchased from Craftsy, done in 2022, and I missed that goal by 12 hours, so I say close enough. But this was a beautiful quilt. It's made out of Coda Solids, and it goes from like yellows to reds, and it's just too big to show in one sitting. But it is a beautiful quilt, and I'm so glad that that is finally done, so I can go ahead and quilt it at some point this year, and then find a good home. Well, I hope you enjoyed seeing all the quilt tops that I put together in 2022. I'm hoping to put together some even more fun ones this year, so stay tuned each week to see my progress. I hope you all have a great day. Let me know what you thought of this quilt show, which one was your favorite, and what you have planned for this year. I hope you all have a great day. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it, and we'll see you all in the next video. Happy sewing!